While we're picking up the offering, come on, guys. While we're gathering the offering, it's my privilege to introduce to you, many of you know him well, Private First Class Benjamin Farrier. Sorry. Come on, Ben. He'll be a little more professional than I am.
Morning, church. So, like my dad said, most of you guys know me. I was born and raised in this church, hometown kid. About 3 years ago, I stood, I think the podium was in the center. I'm not really sure. But 3 years ago, I stood in front of the church and I gave the Youth Sunday message. And I see a lot of the same faces and I see new faces. New faces since the 3 months when I left. So I'm really happy to see that. I see Fuzzy down there. I didn't see him before. And yeah, I see a lot of people that I know and a lot of people that I know love me and prayed for me while I was in Parris Island. Parris Island, I got to tell you, I don't think I would have made it probably past the first Sunday if it wasn't for my friends that I made, and I'll get more into that in a second. But what kept me going is I got letters from the Cummings. I got letters from the college age group that Megan and Jody Tarot teach, that kind of, guide, I guess, because we all kind of just end up having a good time in there, or we did. I don't know what you all do now. And the disciplines that I was taught in this church that I didn't really do before I left. I have to admit, I didn't read the Bible like I should have. I kind of knew, basic stories like Jonah and the whale and all the, cool stuff like that. But when I left, I was confronted with the fact that I had no support system. They pretty much strip you of nothing, to nothing. And they say, I can treat you like a man or I can treat you like a recruit. And you want to be treated like a man when you're down there. You want to prove to them that you can succeed. And I proved early on that I could lead, and I was put in a position that I could, control certain things, and I could assist the drill instructors in making people move faster. Pretty much I could kick and scream louder than the next guy. Don't really know where I learned that, but I learned it. And about week 2, when I kind of settled into the routine, I noticed that there was several different church services, and one of them is they put all the heavy kit. So when I left, I was about 230. I'm about 190 now. I lost a lot of pounds, and there was 5 guys that were over 230. They put us all together. So we were the closest to the drill instructor's house. So they could come out and they could grab us so that we could go have some fun with the drill instructors. It was not fun. Just kind of throw that out there. But in the end, it helped us become who we are today. And I noticed that 3 of the 5 went to the Catholic service, and that myself, and another young man named Bates went to the Christian service. So one night, we were sitting in our racks. We were working on our sleeves or something like that. And there was a guy from Philly who, his name's Ricardo, and I looked over at him. I said, Ricardo, I'm just going to be honest with you. I know nothing about the Catholic Church. And he said, well, what denomination are you? He said, well, I grew up in the Church of Christ. And Bates was Baptist. And so we all, Bates and I had a conversation about that, but I wanted to understand the Catholic Church. So we talked from about 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. that night. And then that went to an every night thing where every night at around 1 o'clock, we would kind of get up. We'd still be working on our gear, working on our weapons and stuff like that, but we would talk about Scripture, and we would try to decipher what the chaplains had said on that Sunday. And in the beginning, it was who's right, who's wrong. You know what I'm saying? 20-year-old guys are cocky. Come on, that's funny. That's a little bit funny. All right. First service laughed a little bit more, but whatever. So, and those who know me is I like to talk big. So I was going to prove that I was wrong. I was right, and they were wrong. And about month one, the first month of training, which is like the hardest part, we had 15 guys out of a 40, at the time it was probably closer to 50, 55 or 6 man platoon. We had 15 guys that would wake up and work on their gear at the same time we were, and they would like share their testimony and scripture that their mom or dad wrote to them and stuff like that. And it helped us. We started to create fellowship in the platoon. And like we had a young man who was, his name is Muhammad Ali. He was born in Nigeria, and then he came to the United States when he was about 16, 17. He was in his early 20s, and he shared his testimony. And we all kind of figured out that we all have the same central ideas and the central beliefs. It just branches out. So even we kind of, it's a cool story about Ali, and if you guys want to talk to me about it, we can talk about it. It takes more time. I don't want to take away from the speaker because his message is greater than mine. But at the end of right before we stepped for the Crucible, we were down to 44 original men in my platoon. We went from recruits, we were men. We weren't Marines yet, we were men. The Crucible is a 56-hour ordeal where they keep you awake and you get to eat 2 meals, and you're always doing something. You hike with a 60-pound pack, you get pushed in the dirt, you crawl underneath barbed wire, your face is constantly in the dirt. The mean temperature, the average temperature at the time that I was in Paris Island was 100 degrees. The temperature when we did the Crucible was 110 degrees with 100% humidity, and the deck temp, so the temperature on the sand, was about 105, 104 degrees. Kids were dropping out left and right. My platoon dragged people, like literally physically put them on their shoulders because we knew that man was capable of doing it, but a lot of us were in pain. We were degraded. Our bodies were degraded. Most of us had pneumonia. Several of us were sick with stuff that I don't even know what to call it. But we dragged them through it. And I was dragged through the last little bit of the Crucible by a young man named Ryan Grimm, who was one of the original 5. And he gave me this scripture. He kept repeating the scripture. It's Psalm 144, verses 1 through 2. It says, "Praise be to the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle. He is my loving God and my fortress, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield whom I take refuge, who subdues peoples underneath me." And every time that he said that, I felt stronger. And the way he was carrying me, I messed up my knee about 3 weeks left in the training cycle, so I had 1 week before the Crucible. If I would have gone to medical, they would have dropped me to another company. I'd still be on the island right now, which I probably would have quit. And Grimm knew that I was struggling, and he knew that my knee was giving way. And on the hike back from the Crucible is when it started to hurt the worst. And you're hiking with an 80-pound pack. And he kept on saying that verse. He kept saying those 2 verses over and over and over. And it got to the point where so you're in 4 squads. So there's 4 men side by sides. And then there's a family. So each row is a family. Each row going back is a family. And Ryan Grimm was in my family, and so was Vincent Bucardo, and so was Bates. And we screamed that at the top of our lungs, as loud and proud as we could. And I don't think I've ever felt God in my life, and I don't think I've ever felt fellowship. And when I heard the rest of the platoon shouting it with us, there was 49 men that crossed over the bridge in Platoon 1060 Bravo Company, 1st Battalion. 49 men turned Marines on that day, on that Saturday. I don't know exactly the date. I'm terrible with dates. I didn't have a watch. I didn't have any concept of time. But I knew that day we were going to become Marines. And that day, I knew God was with us. A day or 2 after, we started to get mail back. We didn't get mail in the field during the Crucible. I got a letter from Taylor Kuhn. Now, I got a letter from her parents, and it was the scripture that was in there it was in Isaiah, and I have it wrote down in one of these Bibles. It was perfect because we'd started to fall apart from the fellowship, and we were more fearful of going home. Because for the past 3 months, we knew what was expected of us. We knew that we had to run and scream as loud as we possibly could, as fast as we possibly could, and you depended upon each other. We were going to all get split apart for 10 days. I won't see probably 40 of the 49 guys that I went through basic training with ever again. I'll be able to text them that Facebook Messenger thing. I'll be able to do that, but I won't be able to see them physically, at least for the next 4 years. We'll be on opposite sides of the earth. And we all started kind of squabbling, and the littlest thing just made us fall apart. And I read that scripture. We continually kept it going. And I read that scripture out loud at the 1 a.m. when we were checking our gear. We had to turn in our rifles the next day. And if you don't turn in your rifle, and your rifle's not perfect, you get in big trouble. So we extra care that night. And I think we didn't sleep that night because we just kept praying. And the scripture, I don't think I've ever heard 49, well, it was 48 because one of my friends was on post. But I don't think I've ever heard 48 men cry. 48 Marines, pardon me. 48 Marines cry. And I've been through some intensive stuff in the past 3 months. And I've watched people break, but they were crying tears of understanding and tears of joy that we did this together. We need to stay together. We need to have that fellowship that we had on month 1 when there was just the 15 core guys. Fast forward to Family Day, which was Thursday. 4 members of my platoon, one was Ali. He gave his life to Christ. He was baptized by the 1st Battalion chaplain. And I missed out, and I didn't say that in first service, but it changes you. I wake up at 0400 every day. I've done that for the past 2 days that I've been out of boot camp. I don't sleep. In the back of my mind, I will always have the discipline that they ingrained into me. But in boot camp and out of boot camp, in the world, walking around, just remember that you can fellowship with anybody of any kind, any time, any place. You don't have to be in the church to fellowship. We are the church, as Andy says. We are the church. This is just a building. This is sticks, plaster, or I don't know what it's made of, but and we can do all things in Christ, who gives us strength. Christ is our rock. He's our fortress. He's our shield. Thank you, church.